Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys about one of the big problems we have with fitness professionals on social media, because a lot of what they are doing is not going to be helpful for the general population while pointing out something that is technically true. And what we see all the time, I see this every single day because I have on some of my friends lists and people I follow and stuff are coaches and fitness professionals and a lot of people in the evidence-based world. And I see them all the time point out, guys, it's not the carbs, it's not the sugar, it's not the refined foods, it's not this, it's the calories in, calories out. That's what they point out to people when it comes to fat loss, obesity, things like that. And they always remind people that if you're in a caloric deficit, you'll lose body fat. Well, the problem we have is not that calorie labels aren't available on foods. People need to understand that. They have to understand that when they're saying this to the general population. And they're acting as if these foods themselves are not the cause. They're acting as if the average person out there who is obese, that if they didn't eat a bunch of highly refined, hyper-palatable foods, like they would still be in a caloric surplus. These foods are what are creating the caloric surplus. A lot of our foods are designed in such a way to where they are hyper palatable. We have designed modern foods that are processed to have more sensation in your taste buds and brain and everything else than normal foods do. Foods that we would find out in nature in any way, or even normal agricultural products. And we've even selectively bred those things to taste better. So even in those things, we've increased our fat content and marbling in meat to make it taste better. We've taken all of our fruits and made them sweeter with more sugar. We've selectively bred these foods to taste better and actually be more calorically dense. But even then, those are rarely a problem for physically active people. Even those are rarely a problem. It's only sedentary people that run into issues with those. But everything else that we eat, we have designed foods to taste better and better and better, and to be designed in such a way that we eat more and more of them. Many people develop addictions to sugar, and it does have certain effects on dopamine in the brain. So anyone who is genetically predisposed to addiction, again, and that involves the way your brain handles dopamine, can actually get a slight addiction to sugar. Now, it's not going to be as crazy as heroin or something by any extreme. I don't want people to think I'm comparing it to that, but it is a real phenomenon. Binge eating is a real phenomenon. And so when you look at these foods, all of these hyper palatable foods, we tend to crave them. They taste really good. It's hard to stop eating them for most people. So when they say things like, oh, these foods are not the cause, well, they clearly are the cause. Because if they don't, I can promise you there is not a single person, not a single documented case of anyone in the world who has ever gotten fat from eating too much chicken salad. Right? They don't exist. People are getting fat because they're drinking soda and eating pizza and ice cream and cookies and snacks and pancakes. That's one of the big ones lately. I'm seeing on all the social media, everyone talking about eating pancakes. Having non-lifters, just their regular clients, everyone wants to eat pancakes. Probably not ideal for people who are extremely athletic. Sit around eating pancakes every day. I mean, that's just one example of many. Put all the syrup and stuff on it. All right, that adds up. So we come over to what else is going on. These are foods that people crave. They taste really, really good. It's very easy to eat them. And it's very easy to sometimes get even addicted to them. You combine the hyperpalatability with the fact that they're all calorically dense. In other words, the amount of calories per unit of volume. They're all low volume foods too, relative to their calories. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. All those foods I just named, that is what's causing obesity. It is causing obesity. And when these fit pros are saying the other, they're giving a mixed message. They're giving a very, very mixed message, and it's not going to help a lot of people, because these are things that people can choose to generally avoid. And when you look at a lot of these food avoidance diets, a lot of the people who follow them have them misunderstood. Right? We know that table sugar, for example, doesn't cause fat gain beyond its caloric content. In other words, unless it pushes you into a caloric surplus, you're not going to gain fat from it. That's actually true. That's understood. That's agreed upon. But telling the average person just to track their intake of it, who doesn't have an enormous intake, just know the calories, that is not going to necessarily be a long-term viable strategy. They would actually be better if they just generally avoided it. Same thing with the high fructose corn syrup. Same thing with oils. If most of the people who were struggling with obesity were taught to avoid these things rather than just track them, they would actually be more successful. And it's this crazy idea that they have that, well, your quality of life would be low if you don't eat all this garbage. And I'm standing here, look at my loose skin as I'm doing these deadlifts. I lost 100 pounds. I'm someone who has been fat, very fat. I'm in my 40s with loose skin from losing 100 pounds. It's very obvious I have been very fat in the past. Not fat now, but I have been. So I can tell you right now, my quality of life, right now, as an active person who doesn't consume refined sugars really of any type, I don't eat anything that has table sugar or high fructose corn syrup in it or anything with added oils to it. I don't eat that stuff at all. I can tell you right now, my quality of life is 1,000 times better than when I was really fat and sick. Okay? It's an absurd concept. Well, if you can't eat pancakes every day for breakfast, your quality of life is going to suffer. No, being 100 pounds overweight and being sick and your body hurting and dying is a low quality of life. Missing pancakes is not a low quality of life. Totally absurd. And people need to understand that if people really and truly want to avoid being obese, you create the caloric deficit not because you weigh and track everything meticulously. That's not sustainable for most people. I can tell you right now, that leads to its own set of eating disorders. As we've all seen, many of these fit pros, and I love some of them are great people. I know a lot of fit pros whose obsession with tracking macros and weighing everything has given them their own set of eating disorders. Many of them have eating disorders as a result of their behavior also. Doesn't make them bad people, but they might want to factor that in when they're giving this advice to everybody. But what we have to remember is that no matter how we want to view obesity and how we want to view as to which calories are equal or not, because they aren't all equal, and I want people to remember that too. Not all calories are equal, even though it is an issue of calories in, calories out. That is the actual real culprit. But the other factors matter because they will affect those things in the long term. And they will affect the way that you feel and the amount of energy you expend and things like metabolic resistance and insulin resistance. All right? The quality of your food will matter and it will affect your recovery and how well you can train. All right? That will all affect calories in, calories out on the longer scale. It's just that in the short scale, calories in, calories out matter. But it's almost like these people are blind to the fact that it is the hyperpalatable junk food that is causing the caloric surplus. And there's a lot of so-called health foods that are still just junk food in disguise. I mean, you go look at some of these products and it's like, oh man, this berry flavored whatever yogurt, and you look and there's 37 spoons of table sugar added to it. And again, a lot of the healthy cereals and stuff, the caloric density and the amount of refined carbs and everything in them is through the roof. Right? It's through the roof. Realistically, people who want to lose body fat, who want to do a carb-based diet, they want to eat lots of carbs, that's fine. I choose not to. Should be sticking with starches. Should be sticking with fruit. All right? That should be your carb choices. And notice I didn't even say whole grain. There's a lot of issues with whole grains also. They have their own set of problems. Starches. Be tubers, fruit, things like that, right? Potatoes, bananas, there you go. There's good choices. You shouldn't be sitting around eating everything with a bunch of sugar added in, no matter how healthy they call it. This is not productive. It's not productive at all. And so this is, again, one of my pet peeves when people point this out. They take something that is technically true and they push it in such a way that I feel like is detrimental to these people, because at the end of the day, yes, it is the food selection that drives obesity. It is the food selection that drives overeating, addictive eating, binge eating behaviors. Right? Again, come back to the point. Nobody in the history of the world has ever gotten fat by eating too many chicken salads. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.